All right. Good morning, Community Wise Podcast. I am your host, Holly Long, and I am so glad you all have chosen to tune in with us today. I have the pleasure of introducing Miss Michele Watley with Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet. And Michelle, welcome to Community Wise. We appreciate you
Thank you
being
for
here.
having me. Yes, excited to be on Community Wise today at the forefront of a very special holiday coming up.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna give you a few seconds to introduce yourself to our audience and kind of what you do and how you got there, if you don't mind.
Oh, of course. Again, my name is Michelle L. Watley. I'm the founder of Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet. It's a nonpartisan nonprofit named for the one and only Shirley Chisholm. If you do not know who Shirley Chisholm is, you are missing out on a rich piece of our nation's history. Shirley Chisholm was the first Black woman elected to Congress, and she was the first woman to run for president on a major party ticket. We're an organization that works to amplify the voices and power of Black women so that they can be more effective advocates on behalf of the issues that matter to them and the communities that they serve. I started Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet in 2018 after having a storied career in advocacy and politics. And no matter
Hence is
what
where we
candidate,
met.
where we met, exactly,
Uh-huh.
exactly. I've had the fortune to work on political campaigns at every level of government and every type of political campaign you can work on, from presidential to local races to ballot initiatives to statewide initiatives. And one thing rang true throughout all of my experiences in moving policies and getting candidates elected, that Black women and their contributions to the advocacy and policy and political space just went underappreciated, underutilized. And we tell people all the time, if you participate in democracy, if you vote, if you go talk to your policymakers, if you run for office, you can see change. Black women participate at astronomical levels in each of these different ways, but Black women are often not the beneficiary of the change that they work so hard to see. And so with Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet, we work to equip Black women with the skills and the tactics and the strategies that they need so that they can become better advocates. Because again, Black women don't need to be empowered. Black women have power. Black women utilize that power, but it doesn't always bear the result that they seek. So we go about our work in three ways. We work to wield the collective power of Black women. So whenever possible, we try to partner with other Black women-led orgs or pull together groups of Black women as individuals so that we can see collective activism. We work to train and educate Black women on the different issues and tactics and strategies that work for moving policy. And we work to position Black women for seats at the decision making table. Because as Shirley Chisholm said, if they don't give you a chair at the decision making table, if you don't have a chair, bring a folding chair. We have to be at the table. In politics, as you are probably well aware, having been in this space, there's a kitchen cabinet. The kitchen cabinet is the group of decision makers and influencers and funders that make decisions about who runs for office, how they run for office, what policies are being moved forward. They make this decision long before it ever gets to the general audience, the general population, to the voters. And Black women need to be at that decision making level.
Oh, what a wonderful welcome. Wonderful intro. All right. So, Friday, August 26th is National Women's Equality Day, which is why you are the perfect um, I don't want to say co-host, but you're the perfect interviewer or interviewee for this topic. And Liz, we do a lot in the community development space. We um, are particularly for help Black and Brown communities thrive, and we not only want them to thrive, we want financial stability in our communities. We want affordable, sustainable housing in our communities. And we also want economic development so we can create those generational wealth channels that so many of our other brothers and sisters who don't look like you and I have. So, willing that in, Black women and women of color in particular make up majority of our financial stability population, who we do our FOC network. So we help with building credit, building your the debt equity or debt I can't even think of the right name, but your debt ratio, lowering that threshold, helping to find livable wages in long-term careers. So this is a topic near and dear to our hearts here at LISC, and we are just so glad that you are here. So let's go on and get into it, okay? You
I'm
talked a
ready.
bit. You ready? Okay.
I'm ready.
So, Women's Equality Day commemorates the signing of the 19th Amendment, the women's right to vote. This is a day that LISC KC can raise awareness of any issues that women of color face, from gender, um, the gap in gender pay to domestic violence to whatever. And so you've given us a little bit of information about the vision behind Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet. Do you want to discuss some of the different pillars of what you're doing for economic prosperity, and how that directly translates into um, women of color and how we can position them in different areas?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to start the conversation. And so, with the ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920, it granted
Hmm.
women across the board the right to vote. But what you would find as you continue to look through history is that although women were granted the right to vote, states and local municipalities, although black women, once that was ratified, ran for office, held positions of public policy
Hmm.
leadership, were able to vote, states started to pass laws that made it more and more difficult for not only black women, but for black people to participate in the democratic process that we have here in this nation. And so,
Hmm.
what we work to do in Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet is to address the different areas and aspects of the lives of black women that we have seen systemic racism built into our policies and systems prove to be obstacles for black women to
Hmm.
live their fullest and best lives. And so when we
Hmm.
started Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet, I wanted to ensure that the work that we did was reflective of the issues that were of most importance to black women. We did some informal surveying of black women in the Midwest in the Kansas City region and came up with the top 4 issues concerning these women. And the number one issue was economic prosperity. When you talk
Hmm.
about economic prosperity, it encompasses so much.
Hmm.
Everything from generational wealth to having a living wage to financial education to being able to start and grow thriving small businesses that add to the economic engine of our state, of our country. And black
Absolutely.
women, yes, and then black women in these spaces continue to experience obstacles at a disproportionate rate to not only white men, for instance, but white women or Hispanic
Hmm.
women or Asian women. And so when we talk
Hmm.
about Women's Equality Day, we have to be mindful that we, as women, ensure that there's equity and equality, inclusivity, even
Hmm.
within our community. Because at the end of the day, if all women aren't able to find capital to start businesses and grow businesses, if all women are not able to enter the workforce and get a living or comparable wage, if we're all losing
Hmm.
cents on the dollar to men, uh,
Hmm.
then we're not able to, as a whole, move forward and progress in the way that we see fit and that we're working so hard to do. And so when I think about economic prosperity, it encompasses so much. It encompasses having access to childcare so that you can go to work. It encompasses different issues that men just don't simply have to deal with because of the way our nation is set up, because of the way our cultural norms and society norms dictate how we show up in the workplace. And
Hmm.
so our work around economic prosperity has been to not only provide basic financial education, we bring and have had sessions with financial experts. We have one right now, our economic prosperity series. We have a woman, Phyllis Hardwick, who
Hmm.
has a long and uh, a very successful background in
Hmm.
investing and budgeting and financial education. She's hosted a whole 4-part series that's taken women from budgeting basics and understanding your relationship to money to how
Hmm.
to invest dollars in the stock market. And that session has been free. We have brought together Black women to talk about insurance and real estate and different ways that you can leverage your dollars to create wealth. Those are just a couple of the examples that of how we have worked with other leaders in the community and worked within the community to provide information and insight that Black women don't have access to. In our work, we also position Black women as experts. So all of the women
Hmm.
who host these series are Black women experts in these areas? And so it
Absolutely.
serves a dual purpose of positioning Black women for seats at decision making tables by positioning them as experts. Our latest endeavor, we're working with the Heartland Black Chamber of Commerce to work to help not only Black women entrepreneurs, but Black entrepreneurs better advocate for policies that will allow them to grow their small businesses. Black women are the fastest growing and leading group of entrepreneurs in this nation and in the state of Missouri. Black women start businesses at a higher rate. Black women run businesses at a longer time frame, and Black
Mhm.
women have the least amount of access to capital to grow and scale those businesses into economic drivers, businesses that can hire and employ more Black women or women of color. And so
Mhm.
we're working to help educate entrepreneurs in the ways of advocacy so that they can get before decision making leaders at every
Mhm.
level of government and ensure that as they make policies related to entrepreneurship, that they take into the account the experience of the Black entrepreneur or the Black female
Mhm.
entrepreneur in their decision making processes so that the laws and regulations that come out of these different governing bodies are reflective and conducive to Black entrepreneurship and Black economic growth.
Shout
That
out
was a
to Miss
very long
Kim.
answer.
No, it's perfect. It completely syncs with everything we do here in this platform. Shout out to Miss Kim. She was one of our podcast interviewees maybe about 2 or 3 months ago. We had a great conversation with her about just what we can do as a community to increase the economic power. Um, so yeah, that perfect, perfect, perfect. All right. Do you want to talk about anything about health and vitality and education and anything in that regard? Because we know, of course, the five social determinants of health and how everything is intertwined in those things, and people don't realize, well, I guess you and I would realize this, but the average person may not realize how economic empowerment, their career, also has to do with their health and the access to health. And as a mother of two, and just the whole issue of the Black maternal health care in this country, and I've had my own personal experience with it, and I have a Black OBGYN. Just the and even then just advocating for myself and trying to get them to understand like, hey, this is not right, so do you want to touch in about health and vitality of what you all are doing?
Yeah, I think you've articulated something that we all know, but don't always connect the dots on. And that
Absolutely.
if we want to thrive and live our best lives, it's not just having jobs, or it's not just being healthy, or it's not just having access to education. All of these things are intertwined, and
Absolutely.
an area lacking in one area can lead to lacking in so many others, and put you in a position where you're not able to thrive and live your best life, because that's at the foundation of what we do. We want to ensure that Black women are able to thrive and live their best lives. And so in our surveying, as I mentioned, economic prosperity was number one for Black women, which is also number one for Black women across the nation. National
Mhm.
surveying showed that that was number one, which is one of the top issues for all Americans. When you look at political surveying that says what is the top issue for Americans, then it's economic prosperity. But
Mhm.
what came in second, third, and fourth were health and vitality, education, and the eradication of violence. And we define the eradication of violence to encompass everything from police brutality that Black women experience at disproportionate rates to domestic violence, because the
Mm.
violence that you may experience from someone close to you that you love has just as much of an impact on you as other forms of violence that Black women may experience. And so when we talk about health and vitality and we talk about economic prosperity, if you
Mhm.
are ill and you don't have access to good health care, you cannot go to work, you cannot run your business, you cannot show up as your best self in the economic
Mhm.
prosperity space. If you have access to health care, but that healthcare is not quality healthcare, or when you go to a doctor to get healthcare services and you're not listened to, you're
Mhm.
asked to provide extra documentation that's not necessary. You are, when you're in pain, you're not believed to be in pain because there is a underlying assumption that your threshold for pain is higher than other people's. If you're
Absolutely.
not, you may have access to healthcare, but if you're not having access to culturally informed healthcare, quality
Culturally
healthcare,
competent. Yes.
culturally competent healthcare, you can end up losing money on services that are
Mhm.
not needed, losing time on services that are not
Mhm.
needed, or what we see in a lot of situations from maternal health to other health issues, losing your life and livelihood because you didn't
Yeah.
get the care that you absolutely needed,
Absolutely.
because of issues that are beyond your control, people's perception of you and your healthcare needs.
Mhm.
And so, for us, when we look at how to increase economic prosperity, we have to look at all of these different areas. We have to
Mhm.
look at the fact that Black maternal health is an issue for Black women, no matter your economic status, no matter
Mhm.
your education level. You could be Beyonce and Serena Williams,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
still two of
Then be a
the
Holly Long and still
and a Holly
experience it.
Long, and a Holly Long, or Michelle's
Right.
mother, who had
Yes.
5 kids that she raised,
Yes.
an income below the national poverty line. And the
Mhm.
common thread for all of these women is that they have had issues with
Mhm.
receiving appropriate maternal health care, issues
Mhm.
that have led to either continued physical harm that they've had to overcome, or for a lot of Black women, and disproportionately so, death.
Yes.
Black women
Yes.
shouldn't have to fear that if they have a child, that they may
They could
not come
die.
out of that process, that they
Mm.
might die. That should not be the fear when you're going through something that is supposed to be
Someone
a
be.
blessing. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be a blessing. It's supposed to be one of the
Creating
greatest times
life.
of creating life, right? One of the best times of your life. Black women have to go through that experience knowing that there's a
Mhm.
possibility that they don't get to the other side of that.
Yeah.
And until we deal with those issues, the systemic, again, how systemic racism has embedded itself into our healthcare system, into how doctors are educated, doctors and nurses are
Mhm.
educated, and how they approach Black patients,
Yeah.
to the financial uh,
Aspect.
components of
Yeah.
healthcare, what it costs to get healthcare, access to
Yeah.
quality healthcare, how that's tied to your economic status.
It
And again,
is.
having economic status does not increase the likelihood that you will get quality health care. And so all of those
Whew.
things tie together. Your access to quality health care may be predicated on your education level. Your access to having a quality education may directly impact your access to quality health care, which directly impacts your ability to create a living wage and to create generational wealth. These things are
Exactly.
they're not
They're all
isolated. Yes,
interconnected.
they're like dominoes. You
It
stand the
is.
dominoes up, and if one falls over, they all fall over. And
Yeah.
so it feels, when you think of it in that way, it can feel overwhelming. But
Yeah, it
that is
is.
the everyday experience of Black women having to deal with all of these different issues and navigate all of these different issues just to engage in basic everyday life activities that many of us take for granted.
Mhm.
And so,
Mhm.
again, we work to help Black women better navigate those issues, to equip them with the skills and tools that they need. And that can be as simple as us hosting Black maternal health town halls, where we
Yeah.
answer questions. We have experts in the Black maternal health space, and we answer questions about what you should be expecting from your doctor, how to
Mhm.
raise your voice and amplify your voice when you're trying to tell your doctor that something is wrong,
Mhm.
resources that are available to you to ensure that as you go through the birthing process, which is a process that starts probably even before
Mhm.
conception. How are you
Mhm.
taking care of your
Know your
physical body?
body.
How are
Mhm.
you? Yes. How are?
What are you
How is?
eating?
What are
Yeah.
you eating? What is the relationship with your partner who is
Exactly.
going through this experience with you? Because that relationship also impacts your maternal health during the journey. And
Your mental
so,
stability. Yes, all of it.
exactly, exactly. And so, looking at it uh, from a fully comprehensive perspective, looking at
Mhm.
all of the components that go into bringing a child into this world, we've worked to, again, position Black women as those experts to share tips and insights. We've even worked with organizations on the ground to provide technical assistance in helping
Mhm.
them develop advocacy initiatives to better advocate within the healthcare space. So we, maybe a year ago, worked with Uzazi Village and
Mhm.
helping their leadership understand, how is power derived? How do you
Mhm.
map power? How can you hold hospitals accountable for their treatment of Black mothers. And we
Mhm.
came up with the idea of not only doing the research to see how hospitals engage with Black mothers when they in the Kansas City area when they come in for Black maternal health services, but creating almost a scorecard and assessing how these hospitals engage with Black mothers. And that scorecard was then, if I'm not mistaken, the Zazi Village then sent that scorecard to the different members of their network. And
Wow.
what we appreciate and love about that partnership or that project in particular is that Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet didn't have to become an expert in Black maternal health. That's
Absolutely.
not our space. And Uzazi Village didn't have to become an expert in advocacy.
Advocacy, which
We were
is
able to partner,
yeah.
bring the best of what we have to the table, and in partnering and working collaboratively, we were able to move forward an initiative that has helped a number of Black women since it was instituted. And so I think that's a great example of where Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet lies in the
Mhm.
space of changing the lives of Black people and Black women
Mhm.
in particular. And it's not for us to be the expert in all these different issues and issue
Mhm.
areas and pillars. Our role is to provide leaders in the different spaces and these different pillar issues the tools that they need
Mhm.
to advocate for the issues that they know through and through, that they are experts on, that they have done the hard work to build, giving them the tools that they need to expand that work.
Awesome. Awesome. Wow. You guys are busy.
What Black woman is not busy?
Right. Booked and busy. Okay.
Booked and busy.
Well, before we wrap up, there's another topic that is near a lot of, I would say, LISC in general has put out a statement. This is regarding the Supreme Court's decision on Dobbs ruling regarding Roe v. Wade and the specific impacts of how that works or how it will work against women of color living in underserved communities and women living with economic instability. And so I just wanted to get your thoughts on um, the ruling. And I mean, granted, it was no surprise to us, but the reality is that we're in 2022 and it actually happened, and here we are. As the premier Black woman advocacy group in the metro, what are you y'all's thoughts?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked that. I think a lot of us were surprised. I don't know that anyone in the advocacy, maternal reproductive health space
Hmm.
believed wholeheartedly that the Supreme Court would overturn over 50
Right,
years of precedents. I think we
right.
were surprised to see that the memo had leaked, that this was even being
Yes,
considered. So
right. That was the
there
surprise.
was that was a
Yes,
surprise. Like, oh, this
right.
is really happening.
Hmm.
Justices most recently added to the court under the Trump administration during their confirmation hearings uh, gave statements that they would not overturn
Exactly.
precedents, whether it be Roe v. Wade or others, that have been longstanding traditions in this nation's legal system. And
Yeah.
that did not happen. They indeed not
Did the
only
opposite.
they did the opposite of what they told senators in their confirmation hearings that they would,
Right,
the confirmation sessions that they would do. And so I
right.
think we were dismayed as a number of Americans
Absolutely.
were. And the challenge for Black women is twofold when it comes to this issue. Access to reproductive health or health care as a whole has always been challenging. Black women
Hmm.
have always been disproportionately impacted by a lack of access to health care, reproductive health care, and the like. But what makes this more challenging is that a number of the institutions that provide abortion access or institutions that also provide other vital health services at reduced or free cost uh,
Hmm.
to women across the community, but it
Hmm.
provides a service that Black women who don't have access to health care uh, can have access to and wouldn't have access to would it not be for
Exactly.
these different institutions. And so
Exactly.
if we take Planned Parenthood as an example,
Hmm.
of all of the work that and services that Planned Parenthood provides, cervical cancer screenings,
Absolutely.
birth control, uh, just regular health checkups, of all of the
Absolutely.
services that they provide, abortion care services only account for anywhere between 3 to 5% of their total
Hmm.
service offering.
Which is
That's a
crazy. That's
very
very
small
low
number
for such a bigger picture issue.
for such a bigger picture issue. Exactly. And so when we look at the impact of essentially instituting and overturning Roe v. Wade through Jobs v. Jackson, what you find is it impacts the funding of those type of organizations. It makes it
Absolutely.
harder for those organizations to provide those services, which then makes it harder for Black women to have access to healthcare services that they would not have access to otherwise. So I think that's
Absolutely.
one of the challenges. I think also one of the other challenges that arises is the need for a more inclusive women's movement and
Oh yeah.
understanding of the nuances of the role of race
Yes. Yes.
and other factors of intersectionality that are not often brought to the forefront of these issues. I think for a long time, abortion rights and feminism as a whole has been viewed as a white women's cause and
Exactly.
issue, and has excluded the experience of Black women to the extent that when these situations happen, when you have Roe v. Wade overturned, it puts Black women in a position where they have to
Hmm.
second guess how they engage.
Yeah.
And this
That's
is not,
good. Ooh, that was real
yeah,
good.
it's like I want to champion this, but I know that even when these
Hmm.
services are available, the experience that I have in having access to these services is not taken into account.
Hmm.
Those obstacles are not removed. The
Hmm.
same white women who march and advocate for these
Hmm.
issues do not march and advocate for my right to have, for my right as a Black woman to
Hmm.
have these
Hmm.
services. And this
Hmm.
is not a new nuance. When we look at 1920 and when the right to vote was
Exactly.
ratified. When we look at the work of the suffragettes during the Women's
Yeah.
Suffrage March,
Hmm.
Black women stepped up,
Hmm.
stepped up to lead, stepped up to do
Hmm.
the work, only to find that their white female counterparts were just
Absolutely.
as opposed to their participation.
Hmm.
There are, if you've taken American history courses, you will learn and know that in the women's suffrage march at Seneca Falls in the early 1900s,
Hmm.
Black women that march had things thrown at them and
Hmm.
racial slurs used not only by the men on the sidelines, but white women. And so, and so um, it creates a conundrum in how
It's a
Black women
delicate
step up to
balance.
show up. It's a delicate balance. And even
Hmm.
just looking at Black culture,
Hmm.
a lot of our decision making around healthcare and other issues is rooted in our religion and
Yep.
cultural norms within the community. And so for some Black people, the right to abortion care is not a
Yeah.
right that they feel should be granted because
Exactly.
of what
Religion
religious
tell
texts
you.
and yeah, because what you're
Hmm.
told. And so it's a complex issue for Black women. It's not as simple as
Mm-mm.
having the access. But when we
It's not
talk
black and
about,
white.
it's not black and
Absolutely.
white. It's not a one-way
Absolutely.
street.
Hmm.
Um, and so for Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet, I think that for me, when I started the organization, I wanted to be very intentional that I let Black women drive how we approach situations and being clear on what the needs of Black women are and not making assumptions about what that is. I come
Absolutely.
from I come from a political space and I am an expert in that space, but I'm not the
Hmm.
expert of Black women and I am not the voice of Black women. Black women have a
It's not a
diversity and
monolith.
plethora. Yeah, we're not a monolith at all
Yeah.
by any
Right.
stretch of imagination. We're diverse in our hair texture, skin color, experiences. We are rich with
Yeah.
complexity, and that's what makes us a beautiful group
Absolutely.
to start with. And so I think for us as a whole, unfettered access to the healthcare services that Black women have decided they needed should be the goal,
Yeah.
flat out. We should not be prevented from accessing any form of health care that we may
Hmm.
believe is necessary for us to live our best lives. And this is where positioning Black women in seats and decision making tables becomes
Absolutely.
important, because those that are making the decisions on whether you have access to abortion care are often people who do not have the ability to have children, who have never had a child, who couldn't tell you the first thing about a menstrual cycle, much less what it takes to give birth, much less what it takes to raise a child. But these are the people who are making decisions on whether you should have a child or not, and whether you get the resources you need to take care of that child, or what healthcare access you have related to reproductive health. And that for us is what's disturbing, if nothing
Hmm.
else, that the policymakers and those making decisions on our behalf don't have the experience, much less the
Hmm.
expertise to make those decisions. They're not seeking out that expertise. I mean, did any of the Supreme Court justices, or any of the states for that matter, that are looking to overturn Roe v. Wade
Hmm.
because of the recent decision at the state level, have they convened a panel of women to discuss what this would mean for women and
Mm.
why is this so necessary? Women are not at the table
Mm.
for, if at all, for these decision making processes. And so again,
Hmm.
it's you have to look at it as a whole. You have to look at it comprehensively. Who is making the
Hmm.
decisions? Are they making informed decisions? How can we ensure that decision makers are informed, or put
Yeah.
ourselves in decision making power, so that these type of legislative decisions are not made without consultation of the people that it impacts? And we see
Wow.
that through and through. And so we're devastated to see that Roe v. Wade has been overturned. We're excited to see what happened in
Hmm.
Kansas, when an
Yes.
effort, when an
It
effort
made me want to
to,
move to Kansas. Then I
there you
thought
go.
again. I'm a Missouri kid.
I grew up in the dot, Wyandotte County, Kansas.
Yes,
So
you did.
I did. I'm from the dot. I was really excited to see that the dot and the rest of the state came through
Uh-huh.
overwhelmingly,
Hmm.
deciding that preventing access to abortion services is not something that should be in the Constitution. Basically, ensuring that that access for now is still available, but
Yeah.
especially in a state like Kansas,
Yeah.
where that has been the battleground state. Kansas and
Hmm.
Missouri. I like to say Kansas and Missouri, the heart of the nation,
That is the.
is the heart of the nation is where a lot of these issues get their start and they grow. When you talk about
Yes.
voter rights, you automatically think of Chris Kobach when he was
Right.
Secretary of State in Kansas, and how many
Yes.
people got kicked off the rolls in an effort
Yes.
to prevent, to institute voter suppression. When we talk about criminal justice reform and policing and violence in policing, you think of Mike Brown in Missouri, in St. Louis,
Yeah.
Missouri. That was the catalyst for the Black Lives Matter
No matter.
movement.
Absolutely.
When we talk about abortion, you think of Dr. Tiller, who many years
Hmm.
ago was killed going to church because he was a doctor that
Hmm.
provided abortion services. Until we get
Hmm.
the heart of the nation right, until we heal the heart of this nation, until we see change in Kansas and Missouri, I don't know that you'll see change across the rest of the nation. It starts at the heart, which is why I'm excited to have started Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet right here in the heart of our nation. Because if we can create
Yeah.
change here, if Kansas, a state like Kansas, can
Yes.
ensure that abortion access, ensues, not to say that that's not going to continue to be
Of
chipped
course.
away at by the state legislature, but
Of
if a
course.
state like Kansas can make sure that that's not a constitutional right, imagine what can be done across the rest of the United States.
Absolutely. In closing, what's next? What's next for Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet?
That's a great question. As we move forward, we are refining what our role is in the space of advocacy. And I think that as an organization, we provide a very unique opportunity and service, and that we can help fill the gap for other organizations that are working on the different pillar areas.
Hmm.
Organizations like the Heartland Black Chamber of Commerce, that has over 4 states worked to ensure that Black entrepreneurs have access to capital and can grow their
Hmm.
businesses. Organizations like Uzazi Village, who work in the Kansas City area and beyond to ensure that Black women have access to good Black maternal health services. Working with organizations in education to make sure parents are equipped with the tools they need to advocate for their children's education. Working with organizations like Real Justice Network to ensure
Mm.
that Black women are not subject to violence from the police or those closest to
Right.
them, the partners that they love. I think our role in this space is to fill the voids and gaps that each of these organizations has in advocacy and policy change. And so
Mhm.
we're working to develop trainings that will help equip Black women and these organizations to provide technical assistance. We're continuing to provide information sessions like the session, our economic prosperity series with Phyllis Harwick about basic budgeting and investing.
Mhm.
And we're looking to grow our membership and institute a membership program so that there could be regular training and resource opportunities for women who decide to engage. We're going to continue to work to fulfill our mission and to see a vision of 5,000 Black women stepped into advocacy to change the trajectory of their lives and to essentially change the world under the legacy and historic contribution made by women like Shirley Chisholm, like
Mhm.
Cathay Williams,
Yeah.
who during the Civil War disguised herself as a man to
Yeah.
fight for freedom in this country,
Mhm.
long before you and I were born. For women like Fannie
Mhm.
Lou Hamer, who
Mhm.
was subjugated to police brutality, beat
Yeah.
for by the police for the right of Black women to vote and to participate in democratic processes, to women like we have here in Kansas City, the Gail Holidays, the Joanne
Yeah.
Collins, the Nita
Yeah.
Malbias, the Mamie Hughes of Kansas City, women who have
Yeah.
all blazed a path and trail for women like
Yeah.
me and you and
Yeah.
women that come after us
Mhm.
to change Kansas City and to change the heart of this nation.
Well, thank you, my love. I just want to say this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Not only for doing the podcast, but for what you are doing and the heart, the soul, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the good moments, the bad moments, those in between moments, those I'm questioning my purpose moments for this moment right now. Thank you, Michelle, for standing up. Thank you, Michelle, for just your work, your advocacy on behalf of Black women, just your advocacy in general. Because, like I said, you and I go way back into our former days and in the political atmosphere, and you know, it was a space where there were young Black women, but there were only so many of us that actually connected and actually got a chance to stay connected through these years. And so I'm a big fan of you. I support you, whatever you decide to do, wherever you decide to go. Thank you for just taking your role so seriously and just doing the darn thing on behalf of all of us. So, with that
Well, I
being
want to thank
said,
you. If it's not too late, I'd like to thank you for taking the opportunity to take your table. This is your table. LISC has a table through this podcast, a table to
yeah,
reach people, and you taking that
yeah,
table and that opportunity to provide a seat for people like me to have a voice and to share our experience. And that's
yeah.
equally as important. One thing about advocacy, you don't have to be an Olivia Pope. You don't
Nope.
have to be a political wonk in order to
Nope.
create change. Opportunities like you're providing today for us to, for people like me to come and share the
Mhm.
work that we're doing and to speak to your audience is the best show, one of the best shows of direct advocacy you could have. So I appreciate you
Absolutely.
thinking of me. I appreciate your sisterhood and friendship, and I look forward to continue to working with you.
All right. On that note, cheers. Woo! Thank you,
Cheers.
everyone, for tuning in to this month's episode, and we will be back next month. Thank you so much. Take care.